Welcome, everyone, to the Cluster Puck Podcast. Let's see if we can actually get all of my head there. That looks a little better. Welcome, everyone, to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Here shortly, I think she's having a lot of technical difficulties. Her poor house just doesn't play nice with her. It's Brit. She'll be here in just a little bit, hopefully. But before we begin, let's go ahead and get our sign-ons going up here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live, so you can get notified when our shows hit. We have an array of other different shows on the podcast. Great shows. We have one every day. We suggest you go check them out. Great stuff if you're especially a Denver fan of the Broncos, Nuggets, Rockies, Avalanche. We got it all. I mean, we discuss anything and everything as far as the Mile High City goes. So if you like this show specifically, want to keep posted on our stuff, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook, and then at Cluster Puck Avs on Instagram and Twitter. Okay, so today we're going to be going through a few more things today. So this week in particular, not a lot happening. However, in a couple weeks, we do have the draft. So let's actually fix that again here. There. So in a couple weeks, we do have the entry-level draft for the Avalanche, who currently do have a first-round pick. So we'll discuss the draft, kind of what it means for maybe our Colorado Eagles squad or some entry-level signings. We'll also do a player spotlight if we have time for that. We want to discuss just a certain Avalanche player for the week. We'll do that kind of during the off season. Last week we did lesson 1 of Hockey 101. Today we'll do lesson 2 of Hockey 101. And then we also wanted to go over the first and foremost, I suppose, we also wanted to go over the Stanley Cup final and how that went. So let's actually go over the Stanley Cup final first, because that's obviously the most recent event. That's obviously the most talked about event. We obviously should probably be talking about it as hockey fanatics as well. The Vegas Golden Knights are the 2023 Stanley Cup champions who defeated the Florida Panthers in 5 games. And that 5th game, it was just an outright beat down. I mean, I don't know what else you can say other than it was just mean. It was just ruthless. I think the final score ended up being 9-3, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you can say. You know, it's just some of those things that you look back on the whole postseason and you just notice, I don't know, not the writing was on the wall, but just teams can only go up so far. And I know we've had this conversation, Britt and I did a couple weeks back, about does the best team actually win? And in this case, the answer is yes. You know, there's, in my opinion, you have matchup chemistry that happens, you have injuries that take into effect, whatever it is, but on the ice, the product that you have, the best team always wins. And on paper, you'll have one thing, but on ice, you'll have another. Right. So take, for example, when the Florida Panthers came back down from 3-1, might I add, to beat the Boston Bruins. And that Boston Bruins team had the best NHL record, regular season record of all NHL time. That's a nutty stat to think about, you know, and Florida ended up being the better team in that series. Right. Let's see. I just got a text from, oh, goodness. Oh, and just the bad luck keeps getting worse for Brit. Looks like she had a tire go out, so she is beside herself. But you know what? That's okay. You know what? Let me just let's see here real fast. All righty. All right, we're fine. But yeah, poor Brit, just a lot of bad luck just goes her way. So send her good vibes, send her all the best wishes. Looks like yeah, had her Jeep go out and had to change a tire. That's too bad. But anyways, so back to the Vegas Golden Knights. Apologies for that. I don't know what else to say. It's been very impressive for them in their only six-year history, if I'm not mistaken, for them to win a Stanley Cup. Now, mind you, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals back in 2017, their first in their inaugural season, I should say, and lost to the Washington Capitals, also 4-1. So a great redemption story. Jonathan Marchessault wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, and we'll talk about what a Conn Smythe is and the Hockey 101 lessons. But to be brief, it's the playoff MVP, just plain and simple. Marchessault was drafted, ironically, by the Florida Panthers or in the expansion draft. So great to see him get that kind of recognition, that kind of reward for all the hard work and effort he's put in. But yeah, Vegas had it all, kind of, so to speak. And I think the most surprising thing about all that is the fact that they had third stringer Aiden Hill as their goalie to whisk them away and take them all the way to defeat the Panthers in the final, the Stars before that, the Oilers before that, the Jets before that. So just not an easy matchup, to take it lightly is what this team had accomplished. Now, take last year's, for example, when the Avalanche, our beloved Avalanche, won. A lot of people said it was the ease of schedule. I would disagree. That Edmonton team is very front-loaded. They have an offense that could pack a punch. Nashville was a very gritty team. And St. Louis, your biggest rival, they play hard hitting, man. They'll knock your teeth right out. So I really don't like the whole ease of schedule excuse for someone that does win the cup, because the cup's the cup, it doesn't matter. And I know there's the whole talk about when Tampa won their two, it wasn't a traditional season. They had bubble hockey, whatever. But there was still another team that could have won the cup. That's the problem, is there's always some other team or teams competing for the same Stanley Cup, right? And if they wanted it more, they would have won those games. So you can talk about it all you want. You can talk about how much this matchup heavily favored Vegas, whatever it is, but they wanted the cup and therefore they got the cup. So congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights. Next year, though, I want to touch base on this real fast. Next year, what I'm hoping to see from the Colorado Avalanche side of things, as we are an Avalanche podcast after all, one thing I noticed that Vegas constantly did was, I guess, let other teams buckle under Vegas's pressure, because Vegas just had the game come to them and then they took control of it. And this goes obviously for all of the playoffs. Avalanche, that was probably one of the bigger things that Colorado couldn't do, was go into a game, let the game come to them, right? Just let it fall in their favor instead of going and taking it and having it slip out of their hands. They played the game for the game's sake, kind of like how a golfer has to play the course. The Avalanche couldn't quite do that this season, and you saw it obviously round one after getting knocked out by the Kraken. So that's one thing I think, if you want to take notes, if you're a team that wants to take notes, that's the first thing I can do. As far as thinking things, as far as application goes, is let the game come to them, take control of it, and then it becomes yours. The game chose you, effectively, is kind of what I wanted to say. But overall, it was a fantastic postseason, a great season. The Avalanche had a fantastic season. You ended up first in the Central Division. Everything was awesome, except the injuries, obviously, and not winning. Everything just was fine. But you would like to see something a little more from what was defending Stanley Cup champions. Now it's Vegas, but that would be my one thing for the Avalanche this season, is to find those players, find the team, find the mixture, if you will, to let the game come to them. That was going to be my big thing for this coming season. Let me just text Brit real fast. Alrighty. She's seeing if she can maybe wrap it up quickly and try to hop on for at least a few minutes at the end. But she sends her apologies. She loves you guys. Wishes she could be here sooner and on time. But okay, so Stanley Cup aside, there is now the off season, the true off season where there's no hockey whatsoever. It is the lowest of times. It sucks because that's also kind of the same time when basketball's over. Football hasn't begun yet. You do have baseball. If you are a baseball fanatic, we would definitely recommend you checking out the Rockies, right, and their season. But as far as other sports to do during kind of the premier hours, I don't know what you want to call it, but apart from baseball, and then obviously the women's sports and soccer and stuff like that, men's sports, you don't have much. So what do you talk about, So the big thing that we have here upcoming, like we said, is the NHL draft. And this year in particular, the Avalanche have a first round, and then I think it's a 4th, 5th, and 6th. Let me check it up real fast here. Cap Friendly always has my back. If I'm not mistaken, it's a 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th, or 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. That actually sounds a bit more correct, but that's why we have the internet, so we can look up these types of things. Okay, so this year, they have a first round, a 5th round, a 6th round, and a 7th round. And the question becomes, since it is still a couple weeks away, I believe the 27th, 28th, or 20th and 29th, one of those two dates, is do the Avalanche trade away that first round pick? We'll talk about the first round pick, just the first round pick, in order to get a player, a seasoned player that could fill the 2C role, become a up and coming, or fill in a spot that needed shoring up. But in this case, maybe we'll go with just the 2C because that's obviously the glaring issue. In my opinion, I honestly think you keep that first round pick because they are in the NHL. It's not quite like maybe the NFL or stuff like that where picks kind of, I mean, all picks are important in all sports, but in the NHL, they hold more longevity and more value. Very similar to something like the NBA or something like that, where those picks are really coveted because it really is for the most part, let me clarify, the higher up the pick, the better the chance that player has of becoming something great, right? So the Avalanche, I don't know exactly what pick they'd be, but it would be in the 20s somewhere, is my guess, 27th, 22nd, something like that. But regardless, it is still a first round pick. Now, there are a lot of teams that would come knocking on that door because it's a first round pick. There are some teams that wouldn't have a first round pick, and they would give up something in a package deal for that pick. For example, I was reading online just at some mock trades and mock transactions before the draft would go down, and one of them spat out the Maple Leafs would trade William Nylander to the Colorado Avalanche for I think it was the rights to Alex Newhook, a first round pick, like we said, and I think a couple of other prospects. And I want to say there's one other player. Who was it? I can't remember exactly what it was, but you get the idea. So it's a package deal with a first round pick for the Avs in exchange for the veterans. He is verified good, William Nylander, in that exchange, right? The only reason I don't see that as being very beneficial is because William Nylander, in this instance, he only has 1 year left on his contract. So to me, it's the question of what would this first round pick become? Because you pick, insert prospect here. you could sign him to a 3-year rookie level contract within the first X number of years. I think you only have like 3 years or so to actually sign him to an entry level contract. So you could effectively keep him for 5 years, 6 years plus, right? In that time span, he could jump to be something fantastic. For example, in that trade, when the Avalanche acquired all these assets and picks for Matt Duchene, one of those picks ended up being Bo Byram, right? The Bo Byram that we know and love. We have seen him on the ice. We know the product he can produce. But imagine if that were something that in Nashville's case, for example, you traded away, you gave away someone to the likes of Bo Byram. You just never know what it could be. So that would be my kill switch effectively for why not to give away that first round pick, is because the potential for that player to be something phenomenal is super high. Now, granted, not every first round pick comes out to be just this blooming flower that is just fantastic right out of the gate, whatever, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews type stuff. And with good reason. I mean, look at Jonathan Marchessault, so like we were just talking about earlier in the segment. He wasn't even drafted, and he won the Conn Smythe Trophy. Now, imagine that, first of all, is very impressive to go for. He's only, the next player since Wayne Gretzky to be an undrafted player and actually win the Conn Smythe in the Stanley Cup final. He's in such elite company. But the point is, he wasn't drafted. So basically, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, that you do not have to be drafted in order to become something great. You don't have to be a first rounder to be something great. But like I said before, most first rounders have a better shot to be someone in the league, in the show, which, like I said, in my opinion, is grounds enough to keep the pick. Now, there could wander something along that could just scream a lucrative deal for Chris McFarland, Joe Sakic, our front office, that they would be foolish to not let it go, foolish to not let it go. In that case, there's worth something thinking about. And honestly, it might be that the trade pans out. The player we got ends up being great, signs the long-term extension with the Avs, and the first round pick ends up being a nothing. We don't know. But I like the odds of keeping the pick. So that's just my opinion. I know Brit would have one as well. And like I said, hope maybe she hops on. So we'll quickly ask her that. But that would be my opinion. I want you guys to let me know your opinions in the comments as well, as far as what you would do in that type of a situation. Now, keep in mind, the Avalanche haven't had a first round pick in what feels like a millennia, right? It has been 3 years, something like that, since we've actually had a first round pick. So it's been a while, and maybe that's something that the Avalanche are needing is to bolster up that roster down below, because what I'm wanting to know is, how far can this go of not having these depth picks and trying to sustain that in the AHL with the Colorado Eagles, where that pipeline tries to feed up to the Avalanche? Because you saw it happen this year. Injuries plagued the Avalanche the entire season, right? That becomes the issue of, what if you don't have enough of those good players on the AHL that can effectively become a non-issue on the Avalanche squad? What happens if you run out of that depth? And then you have this type of a season again, where injuries just riddle you all year long, and you can't squeak out those wins. You can't end up going to the playoffs. Injuries just plague you, and all of a sudden you're out. You miss the playoffs. So that would be my one thing to keep in mind, as far as, would you or would you not take the pick? A couple things here. Avatar does clarify. Thank you, Avatar. It is the 27th pick is what we'll be having. So we're pretty close to the end, but it's still, like I said, first round pick nonetheless. And Allie It says, have we talked about the possibility of Elias Lindholm coming to the Avs? That's another name that has been spat out quite a bit as far as players for the Avs to go after. Let me just quickly send a text to Brit. Okay. So Elias Lindholm, that was, like I said, one that was spat out quite a bit with the Avalanche and a potential trade. And I was discussing this with Allie, actually, just about an hour before we went live here. I like this idea. Would I give up a first round pick to have him? Not if I couldn't help it. If I could keep the pick and still make the trade work, I would do that. Now, that could be something like signing JT Compher and then kind of trading him, like a sign and trade effectively, giving them maybe a second round or third, or something in the future for maybe another year, 2025, maybe something like that. I'm not sure. But I really would like to have Elias Lindholm in the lineup. And we talked about this a few episodes ago as far as people you'd like to bring in, people you would like to trade for and or sign. This one would be a trade in that case. And he's definitely one of the people on my radar. I just like how he would fit on the team. And in fact, let me pull up his stats from last season. So I can kind of show you exactly what I mean, so I don't have to kind of defend his style here. Let's go to his statistics. Let's go to last season. So let me actually jump 2 seasons prior. The 2021-2022 season. Played all 82 games, had 42 goals and 40 assists for a total of 82 points. Now he has the capability of being somebody, right? Being a brace, being a foundational piece, very Nazem Kadri-esque is kind of what it reminded me of, is the stat line that he's produced. This last season, not as good, but still very remarkable. 80 games played, so he just missed 2. 22 goals, 42 assists for 84 points. So 2 more points than the season prior. Definitely, or I'm sorry, I wrong math. 64 points. I'm sorry. So not as much as the season prior, but at the same time, you have to look at the team that was the Calgary Flames, didn't make the playoffs. There were a lot of tensions between the coach, Nazem Kadri, and Huberdeau came in. There's a whole new look and dynamic to the team. But I feel like with Lindholm and the dynamic that the Avalanche have, very, very team-oriented, very, how do you say, like, they make players become something. They can take, for example, take Val Nichushkin. They took him from what was kind of a laugh upon joke from Dallas, and they turned him into a fantastic player, right? With a stat line that, had he not been injured last season, would have rivaled something of Mikko Rantanen, if you want my honest opinion. So I think we could take Elias Lindholm and fit him, as Ali asked where he fit in the lineup, you fit him in that 2C. Just exactly what Nazem Kadri was to us 2 seasons ago. You fit him in that lineup. You fit him in that 2C spot. And I think from that point, you are effectively golden in that spot because, not being Nazem Kadri's teammate from last season, he's got what it takes to then jump back to that port where he had 42 goals, 40 assists, and 82 points, And Ali does ask, speaking of Kadri, do you think he would have had a better season if he stayed with the Avs? Or do you think the 2021-2022 was an anomaly for him and he'd never be able to replicate his success? Wow, a lot to take in there. Let me take a drink real fast. Okay. To answer this question, and I know this has come up a couple of times, and there's a couple of people that even texted me about this. My opinion is this. Had Nazem Kadri stayed with the Avalanche, we would have gone to the Stanley Cup Finals a second time in a row, barring health wasn't a concern. Nazem Kadri for our team a couple seasons ago was very pivotal for being a 2C, mind you. And there were times they even brought him up to the first line and stuff like that. But he did wonders on that second line, where a lot of the times he was the best skater out there, just making all kinds of jokes out of the defense and going around him, scoring from wherever he needed to. So I'm of the opinion that if he were to stay, if we could have kept him and maybe even Burakovsky, you're back to the Stanley Cup final again. So I think he would have played great, but at the same time, it was a contract year for him. He went into free agency and took whoever threw a large amount of money at him and ended up being a flame, which is what happens. Free agency, it's the player's choice. They can choose wherever they go. No hard feelings. But man, I would have liked to see him stay, right? Because I think with his chemistry that he had, you bring in Evan Rodriguez, maybe they get something going on that second line. You would have seen all kinds of things going on. So good question, Ali. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, as far as his teammate though, Elias Lindholm, like I said, I am definitely of the opinion to bring him in and see what happens. There's now, keep in mind, there's a lot of stuff in this offseason that's going to happen, right? There's going to be trades, there's free agencies, and a lot of free agents could just choose to leave. We could bring in some new ones. This team is going to look different, right? And you even saw Jared Bednar kind of glean on that a little, saying, yeah, this lineup's going to look different. How different? Could be a couple players, could be an entire line of 2-3 people just gone, replaced, and everything shifted. Like a bunch of stuff could happen. Okay. So apart from that, like I said, let me know in the comments as far as if you'd keep that first pick. If you were the Avalanche and you were in this situation, again, let me give you the criteria. You haven't had a first round pick in a few years. There's going to be teams calling for that first round pick. Would you listen to offers? Would you deny it completely? You keep in mind, you don't have, you're going to need to bolster up your AHL team at some point. So again, let me know in the comments below as far as what you would do. Okay, moving on here. Brit's idea as far as the player spotlight. We'll try to save that for the very end if she does hop on. But let's go ahead and jump into a couple of other things here. I think right now we'll have some time for Hockey 101. So we'll put that in now, and then we'll see if we can do the player spotlight. So, okay, let me just get this pulled up here. Great. All right. So last week's lesson, we talked about the ice rink itself, as you can see here. We talked about the red lines, the blue lines, the face-off dots, the face-off circles, the goalie crease, the neutral zone, attacking zone, defending zone. We're going to pay attention this time around to the offsides call and the icing call. So let's jump into offsides first, because that one tends to be the one that is a little easier to grasp. And then the icing call, there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes with it. Okay, so let's look here at these two blue lines. These are going to be the ones that we're going to pay attention to for the offside call. Now, what is offsides? That's a simple question. The simple answer is offside is when, let's say, since this is the direction of play heading left to right, let's say you have a skater going into your attacking zone or offensive zone, and they cross, their entire person crosses this blue line before the puck crosses that blue line. They will whistle it offside. Essentially, you were in front of the puck, in front of the play during the time that blue line crossed, or the puck crossed that blue line, I'm sorry. They'll blow the whistle. Face-off will come over to either this dot or this dot, depending on where the offside occurred, who the guilty party was, all that stuff. Now, there is another way. There's a couple of ways out there to do offside, but the main one is usually when there's like a breakout, the team's coming into the zone, whatever it is, and someone's found offside, right? So they're rushing left to right, caught offside. One guy was a little too quick before the puck can cross that blue line. They'll wave it back, like I said, go to these two dots. The other time, though, is let's say they made just a clean entry into the attacking zone. No problem, right? And they're juggling around with the puck, whatever happens, blah, 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 blah. And let's say there's a guy around this face-off dot, and he passes it up to the point here, and it gets right on that blue line as that puck is being passed right up to the blue line. There's another player waiting for it, and it crosses back. It misses him, right? Well, he can't just go retrieve it and come back in, right? Because you would then have 1, 2, 3, 4 other players offside. If that does occur, you will see all the offensive players have to skate right back to the blue line and tag up, and they try it again to go into the zone correctly. If not, they'll blow the whistle, call them for an offside, and they bring the play out again. So you'll see that a ton of times where, if, for example, you'll see it a lot on the power play, you'll see it when there's an offensive set up, sometimes a bad pass and it goes right past the blue line. Everyone has to usher themselves out of that attacking zone and try again. Let's see here. Okay. Now, what if, for example, you are going, let's see, so still left to right, but you have this blue line from your defensive zone? Well, it doesn't do anything. This blue line would be for anyone, for example, the opposition going from right to left. That would be their offsides line, right? So you only have to pay attention to the offside line, the blue line, in your offensive zone. That's the only one that you have to pay attention to of the two, right? Anything in between in that neutral zone is fine. You have to, just like I said, enter correctly into your offensive zone. Defensive zone doesn't matter. None of that makes a difference, right? Doesn't matter if you're on 5-on-5, if you're shorthanded, if you're on the power play, you have to enter the zone, your attacking zone, correctly. Otherwise, again, blow it offside, right back to the face-off dots. So next little item here is icing. This one's a little bit more difficult to explain, but here's the overall. Again, we don't want to get too confusing here because, again, this is just a 101 course. We don't want to get into too much depth, but there's enough that at least for you to follow the game, this is what you need to pay attention to. The lines here, the red goalie lines. So on this end of the ice and this end of the ice. Pay attention to these two. Now, once again, direction of play, left to right. So we're heading that way. Okay. And also pay attention to the red middle line. So all 3 red lines. Okay. Let's say you are on your half of the ice, not your third, but your half. So take that middle line and go into the defensive zone. That's your, we'll just call it your half of the ice. Let's say you got possession of the puck and you're steaming your way over into your offensive zone, but you make a pass that doesn't touch anyone's stick, person, whatever. It touches nothing, and it runs its way all the way to the end of the ice and kind of stops around these boards here. But it crossed this red line, regardless of whether you touched it last. Well, it has to be the offense, obviously, you touched it last. They'll call that an icing. The reason they do this is to prevent, I guess, just a dump and chase type situation where you can just fling it as far as you can, have some, let's say you're right here, you have a teammate right here, ready to go, and you just fling it down as hard as you can to basically pool table bump it off to him. He grabs it, comes in his way, and scores after the puck crosses the blue line. They're trying to prevent kind of that. I don't want to call it like a cheating case, but it's kind of a dumb thing to do. Just, it's not really fair. All you're doing is just dumping it down, having some guy go after it and score or have a scoring chance. They're trying to limit, they want to maximize the ability of play, right? The ability to actually go and have to make an opportunity instead of just having it bump, you grab it, cool. So they put that red line in there so that you can only do the dump and chase, which dump and chase is a slang term that we'll talk about in a few lessons from now. But you have to reach the red line before you can then throw the puck over against the boards in your offensive zone. You have to be on your attacking half for the icing to be effectively negated and waved off. Now, that being said, there are a couple of instances where the icing is waved off. Let's say, for example, well, actually, before I go into that, let me say this. If you are on your back half, you dump it in, nobody touches it, blah, 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 blah. They will only call the icing as soon as a defending skater from the other team crosses and gets to these dots. Then they'll blow the whistle if he is not competed for. So if let's say, for example, someone just dumps the puck in, it should be an icing call, but nobody stands there and goes and gets it. They just expect it to happen. They will actually negate that icing call, and they'll say, hey, someone come get it, and then it's free game, right? So you do have to pay attention to the referee in this case. And so I did say the phrase competing for, right? So let's say, yeah, somebody did accidentally make that pass way behind their own red line. It does get to the other end of the ice, but there is a competition for the puck. There is the ability for somebody to go and get that puck from the offense, right? Well, it can't just be an obvious, your offensive player was clearly going to win it, whatever it is. If that's the case, they'll negate the offside. But let's say that there's a competition between the offense and defense, right? And it's a toss-up. The referee will then call icing or no icing, depending on who he thought would take advantage of it. So let's say, for example, you have, again, same scenario. You kick it out, crosses both red lines, but your teammate actually has the ability to go and get it over here, right? The referee sees your player, thinks he can actually, he has the better chance of getting the puck. He'll wave it off. He'll kind of like an umpire doing a safe motion. He'll say no icing. But let's say vice versa, dumps the puck, but the defenseman has the ability to go get it, no problem. Then they'll blow the whistle, wave the icing call. I do think, though, I think I actually did misspeak at the very beginning where I said they'd wanted to avoid the dump and chase. That was kind of incorrect of me to say. I probably should have said they wanted to avoid people just throwing the puck there to waste time. That probably is what I should have said as far as why they added the icing call. So apologies for that. We'll actually roll with that reason moving forward. So another thing for icing, keep in mind, this is during 5-on-5 play, full strength against full strength. If you are the defense of a power play, you are shorthanded, icing no longer exists. Okay. So you'll see a lot of times, if there's a team in the attacking zone. Whoops, I should probably get my mouse over here. There's a team in the attacking zone here. They got 5, you have 4, and you somehow mangle that puck away. You get possession of it. You will see a lot of times teams just, slap shot that puck as far down the ice as they can because icing does not exist. They'll do that to kill off the time on that penalty kill. So you'll see that happening a lot. Now, keep in mind, the offense still has to keep no icing because they are at full strength, but only if you're shorthanded or an even strength will icing be negated. right? So if it's like 4-on-4, 3-on-3, whatever it is, that's even strength. Icing is then in effect. It's hot, it's live. But if you are shorthanded in any capacity, icing is waived off for you if you are the defending team, if you are the shorthanded team. Okay. So let's see what we have as far as time goes. And let me know also if you do have any questions as far as icing goes that we can do for you here. Let's see. Lighting went out. I might have kicked the USB. Okay. Let's see kind of where Brit's status is, and then done. Alrighty. Okay. So we'll see what she says. There was a question here, so let's hop back now after this Hockey 101. Again, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. We'll see. Just DM us at the Cluster Puck page. We'll make sure that we settle it right with your understanding. The objective, I guess, we didn't really clarify that at the first lesson. The objective of these lessons is to make you knowledgeable in hockey, right? So if there's something we didn't explain right or you were left confused, please let us know, because like Britt said last week, you don't need to know the game of hockey in order to have fun, to enjoy it, to root for your team, whatever it is, and in this case, root for the Avalanche. But knowing the rules makes it all that much better. I don't know how to describe it other than there just becomes a thing where you become enveloped in that game, and that's kind of what took it on for me, was learning the rules of hockey, understanding how a face-off worked, understanding why offsides was there, or what they called goalie interference, what a penalty was, and what instigated this, and da, 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 da. It made me a student of the game to a point where I just was so enthralled by it. And now keep in mind, I don't know every rule, and there might be some places where I did misspeak and I actually was incorrect, right? I'm still learning it myself. But for the basics, we're to a point where we feel like we're comfortable explaining it to other people, helping them understand the game of hockey so they can love it even more. Right. So that's the point of these Hockey 101s. And we're going to talk about a slew of things, from the equipment, puck sticks, helmets, and pads, to what substitutions can do, the positioning, how positions work, basic strategies, all kinds of stuff. And this will happen throughout the summer until the preseason begins. So, there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about, but just, we're going to take it one step at a time. So let's go ahead and actually jump back one more section over to that draft question here. And Allie, kudos to you for these questions. I appreciate it. Is there much depth in this draft beyond the first 5 or so picks? I think it would depend on that. So this was Allie's answer to my prior question of, would you get rid of the first round pick? From what I hear is that it is a very top heavy first 5 or so picks, but the first round itself, from what I'm gathering, from what I'm being told, or what I see on social media, is that this first round in and of itself is actually supposed to be rather good. One that we haven't had in a good number of years. So, keep that in mind, I guess. But that would be my understanding of it. Is it is going to be pretty good. So I guess, Allie, let me know as far as what you would do, if you would trade that first pick away or not. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring myself back up here. Couple things to note. There was a signing that we had during the week. Let me make sure I can find it here. Let's see. We traded with the Dallas Stars and got in exchange. Oh, come on. I had it pulled up and then it just left. Oh, dear. Let's see. Here we go. So from the Avalanche themselves, the Colorado Avalanche did acquire Fredrik Olofsson from the Dallas Stars in exchange for future considerations. Olofsson has agreed to a one-year contract for the 2023-2024 season. So just looking at him, he didn't play very many games with the Stars themselves. He was more of the Texas Stars AHL affiliate organization. So maybe that does have something to do with this pick. Maybe they are just trying to shore him up, and maybe they will trade away the pick. Maybe they're brewing up something. I'm not entirely sure. But from the looks of this, it just looks like it's going to be a depth, or I guess not a depth, but an AHL swap. And what is that future consideration? I really hope it ain't that first round pick. But I'm assuming it might be something like a late pick, 7th, 6th round, maybe even cash. I don't know exactly what. Maybe like another AHLer, to be determined. Okay. Sorry, my mouth gets really parched when I talk much. Okay, so Ali's response here. I like this. If that's the case, sure, why not? Trying to get some young, cheap talent, especially since they have so many roster spots to fill this year. So there you go. There's a good answer for you. I don't really have a lot to talk about. I really know Brit wanted to do her part of the spotlight. We were going to spotlight the great Gabriel Landeskog. But at the same time, life happens. It's one of those things where you just wish that you could just all of a sudden teleport and be where you want to be and not have to worry about anything. But as far as what I have, I think that's basically it. So I think we're just going to have to wrap it up here. Let you guys get on with your lives, but thank you once again, everyone, for following along this episode. I know a lot to take in as far as that Hockey 101 draft, the Stanley Cup. Next week we'll have again another hockey list. We'll have that spotlight. We'll actually dive a little deeper as far as who we would take in the draft. And then I believe free agency also opens up after the next episode. I think July 1st is when I think it'll officially open up. So maybe we'll go and touch up on the free agency again. But thus officially now begins the real off season for the NHL. Next stop is going to be the 2023-2024 regular season, which will begin in October. But thank you, like we said, for following us, for showing your comments, your interest, your participation. Brit and I really do appreciate it. We really do enjoy having you guys comment, listening to us. It's been a big help having all your support, and comes with a lot of praise. Believe it or not, we do get talked about from other people. So if you do like what you saw, don't forget again to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. Like I said, we have a whole slew of shows, guys. I mean, I can't tell you. 5280, The Neighborhood, where they do live watches. Broncos Breakdown with Bill, and Bill will be on next week with me. That'll be fun. Wild Wild West, Sports Nonsense Whiskey, mainly Broncos. The BPA Show is one. Orange and Brew. A lot of liquor references I'm noticing here. But hey, that's Coors Field. That's I mean, they named Coors Field after a beer, but that's Denver for you. In fact, quick little tangent here before we sign off. Ali and I, this was last March, we went to Mile High Stadium and toured the Broncos facility, the stadium, and they were so very proud of the beer that they were able to pump and produce there. And we went and saw the chillers and racks and coolers and everything that they had there as far as getting beer into the game and how much is consumed a game. It was an outrageous number. It was very impressive. So it would make sense that the other shows on the MHRT network have some kind of an alcoholic reference. So anyways, all those shows, fantastic shows. We recommend you go and check them out. Again, about an episode a day is what you'll have. We have schedules, for example, Cluster Puck, we're on Mondays. I know Broncos Breakdowns are on Fridays, so just check them out throughout the week. Great stuff. And again, if you want to follow us, the Cluster Puck Podcast, don't forget, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Instagram and Twitter. That wraps it up again for this episode. Doesn't look like Brit was able to make it. Unfortunate. We miss her, but we'll sure have her in, I think, a couple weeks, because she's actually going to be gone she'll be here next week. And then in 2 weeks, Bill's going to be with me. Sorry about that. But other than that, let the off season begin.
Even when you feel low, you can still go.
Hey, timeout. I hit the button too early. Let's try that again. Let the off season begin. And as always, go Avs, go.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every